잘 자요. 안녕.
잘 자, 베이비.
꿀잠. 내 꿈꿔.
This is how I discovered Dreamcatcher. I was just starting my second year of college, scrolling on my phone, when I happened to come across this post shared by a fan account. It was so simple, just a plain 10-second long video message of the girls wishing the viewer a good night. Most other groups I had discovered were either from friend recommendations or I had come across a music video or other type appearance they made that made me curious about them. And yet, despite how simple this was, something drew me to them. The outfits the girls were wearing looked pretty. The way they each said their goodnight message gave me a bite-sized look at their personalities. And that name? Dreamcatcher? What kind of group are they? One of the tags mentions Fly High, so I go to YouTube and look it up, and oh, there's a music video for it. Well, I might as well take a look. I'm not really sure what to expect. And like that, I was hooked. While it would take me a couple more years to fully consider myself a proper insomnia, keeping up with their more recent videos, releases, and social media posts, getting to know the members on more than just a surface level, the music and concept of Dreamcatcher immediately grabbed me. Up until this point, all I had ever seen from K-pop groups were cutesy summer bops, cool electro dance numbers, and quirky music videos with insane visuals. But this? Rock-infused pop music that sounded closer to anime theme music, motifs of gothic supernatural horror mixed with ethereal looks and vocals, powerful and intricate dance formations. This was different. Fast forward to present day, and I got to witness a lot of milestones for the group. I got to see their first music show win. I got to see them live in Louisville back in 2022. Dreamcatcher had become one of my alt groups in K-pop, right next to Luna, because of their consistent quality of music, the members' personalities and chemistry on and off stage, and most of all, their concepts. While I was introduced to them through the initial trilogy of releases of their, at the time, ongoing Nightmare series, Dreamcatcher's discography and videography evolved into an anthology of different storylines and genres. One minute we're in a cyberpunk dystopia, the next we're back to eerie supernatural horror, and back and forth again. What I'd like to do today is explore each series Dreamcatcher has put out through their music, how their videography evolved over time, and how, in spite of each series being largely standalone, they feed into a much bigger theme shared throughout the group's history. So without further ado, let's dive into the dream world.
Baby, welcome to my dream world. Come in. 나만 바라보게 벗어날 수 없어 넌 내 손안에 있어. 끝없이 반복되는 악몽 속에서 이대로 갇혀 있어줘. 영원히 나만을 위한 인형처럼. Baby, good night. Baby, good night.
So here's something you may or may not know about me. I don't like horror. I don't like being jump scared. I don't like blood and gore. I don't like body horror and grotesque monsters. I don't like uncanny valleys. I don't like dread. I don't like empty spaces, liminal spaces, whatever you want to call it. I don't like being scared. And yet, consistently, I find myself being drawn to horror in some way or another. I like Madoka Magica, and while I wouldn't necessarily call it full-blown horror, it does explore darker themes. I like Danganronpa, even though some parts of it make me a little uncomfortable, and not all of it has to do with horror. I like vampires and witches and supernatural fantasy, even in spite of the fact that they delve into bloody gore or body horror. I've watched several movies and shows that scared me just because an idol or actress I liked was in it. I've watched video analyses on films I'll never watch, games I'll never play. I'd much rather read a Wikipedia page than go to a theater and watch a scary movie. Heck, At one point, I was scared to play Undertale of all things, until I realized that the things I was scared of were either completely optional, like the No Mercy route, or they weren't that scary once I played the game myself. And then there's this specific subset of groups that I listen to. Alongside Dreamcatcher and Luna in some aspects, I've also enjoyed Purple Kiss, Pixie, Abe Musica, Phantom Shita, and many, many other artists that have dabbled into dark horror concepts. Heck, that's pretty much the whole reason why I knew about the Dempa subgenre of psychological horror and clocked in on Artemis's filmography portraying a lot of the same motifs. More on that here. So, why is that? Why is it that, in spite of almost every aspect, horror is something that makes me uncomfortable and frightened, and yet I'm still drawn to it in media? Well, I think what I've managed to deduce is that the things I do like that have horror elements in them, they don't have it as the main aspect. Or if it does, there's something to offset it and keep me coming back. Madoka Magica explores the common tropes and ideas of the magical girl genre through a darker and more somber lens, with characters who are flawed or carry some inner pain with them. Danganronpa is essentially one big murder mystery plot with eclectic characters and over-the-top sense of humor, which can sometimes be to its detriment, but still has some pretty epic moments and themes in its best moments. Undertale makes us think about the consequences of our actions, and whether you can form a genuine bond with its world and cast, and whether you think it's worth it to throw it all away under a completionist mindset. Whether it be through the story and characters, or in music's case, the songs and the artists creating them, what draws me to these works and the people behind them isn't the horror. It's something else that the genre of horror is simply used as a backdrop for. Dreamcatcher uses elements of horror and various other genres to create a set of stories with their own unique theme. While it started out primarily in the gothic horror subgenre, they've branched out in order to dive into various other themes and messages. And while an argument can certainly be made for all of their releases and storylines being one universal timeline, heck, I made a whole theory on that a couple years back, I think the decision to keep each storyline self-contained was a very smart decision. It's even alluded to the fact that they practically made their own multiverse during Versus era, so yeah. With all that being said, I think it's about time we start talking about each story in Dreamcatcher's discography. Starting with... Dreamcatcher had a very interesting debut, even before they were officially Dreamcatcher. I'm sure most longtime fans know by this point, but before there was Dreamcatcher, there was Minx. Minx was marketed as your typical bubblegum pop girl group with bright concepts. A little cute, a little flirty, and unfortunately, very standard. Minx got washed out and overshadowed by groups with similar concepts, whether it be due to coming from a bigger name company, or utilizing the concept in interesting ways. Eventually, someone at Happy Face realized this wasn't working and just said, "Screw it, we're doing a rehaul." Now fully realized with a brand new, bold concept, Dreamcatcher took the stage. As their first storyline with their new group concept, a lot of the Nightmare series is rough around the edges. There's a lot of argument among longtime fans of how the series is structured and where exactly it ends. Some say it ended with You and I because the members said what was a new Nightmare story. Some say it ended with Petey, but then others say it ended with breaking out. I believe there were also some arguments made about them potentially drawing on some stereotypes of Native American culture, but I'm not at all familiar with that, so please feel free to correct me in the comments about this. Since Fly High is stated as a prequel, we can easily point to this as the starting point. And while theories regarding the timeline can be a little bit jumbled, we can see a general story unfold. Dreamcatcher is portrayed as a group of 7 friends who encounter a supernatural force. In this case, Ji-Woo finds a spider and Yoo-hyun burns it gleefully. Why is it that whenever we're kids, we love torturing tiny bugs? This somehow causes each of the girls to be confronted and possessed by an unknown entity, turning them into nightmares and trapping them in a world where reality and dreams become intertwined. They become like ghosts, only able to influence the material world in a limited capacity. In fact, the girls were even given a representative fear, which occasionally is shown in their music videos. Who or what exactly this entity is that cursed them is kind of left a mystery, but a majority of the fandom has dubbed it the Spider Queen, as if Yoo-hyun's act of killing the spider angered and released this entity to curse them. They would even later release a B-side on their Deja Vu EP called Curse of the Spider, which seems to reinforce this idea. However, although this spider is shown in Fly High and later You and I, the symbols of the spider seem to stop there. Maybe this was due to the aforementioned allegations of cultural appropriation? Again, I don't know. The way I interpret the timeline is Fly High happening first since the prequel, and Chase Me and Goodnight showing the girls working together to escape the nightmare realm they were trapped in. You and I is the continuation of this storyline and everything unfolds chronologically from there. This is where some of the lore becomes a little wishy-washy, and I think this could have been due to the fact that Happy Face were still largely experimenting with what they wanted Dreamcatcher to be. While there are recurring motifs such as Ji-Woo's doppelganger as mentioned before, no one really knew where the Nightmare series ends. Personally, while I side on the notion that Breaking Out is the true end of the Nightmare storyline, PD and Breaking Out ultimately seem to portray two sides of the same story. The girls persist through the chaos of the Nightmare realm to reunite with each other. Breaking Out basically feels like an epilogue to what PD shows us, the end of the Nightmare. This anthology lays out some of the early groundwork for what we can expect going forward. The songs naturally progress through the feelings of anxiety and longing, from a playful, almost obsessive desire to be with someone and toy with them, to a rallying cry of a group of friends faced with shared worries and a wish to persevere through dark moments. In a way, it almost perfectly reflects Dreamcatcher's journey up to this point. The girls were struggling as minks and probably would have given up their dreams if they hadn't persevered. Sure, the change in concept was drastic and uncertain, but they kept pushing through to see if this dream could be realized. And now, with the nightmare finally over, a new story can begin. I'll save talking about Deja Vu for the upcoming section, but for now, let's discuss the next major storyline in the group's discography, the Dystopia trilogy. After Deja Vu, which served as its own self-contained story, we see the group officially shift into a new form of storytelling with their filmography and music. While the Nightmare series contains its own recurring themes, every release in the Dystopia trilogy has one core message driving it, that being the social commentary of the internet, social media, cyberbullying, and the power of words. From the opening shot, this theme is established with the titular tree of language referenced in their first album, along with the text reading, "One day, suddenly, the light did not..." Wait, I don't have to read this. I already got someone else to do a dramatic reading.
One day, suddenly the light did not come. People forgot how to say good things. Oh, okay, that's it.
Misaki, if you're watching this, please don't be mad at me. The tree of language in the story of this comeback is influenced by the power of words. When people say good things, it bears white fruit. But when people say bad things, it bears black fruit. As the opening text would suggest, people were now starting to say only bad things, causing the tree to bear more black fruit and the utopia to become corrupted. The way that this corruption being unleashed is portrayed with Gahyun shattering a strange floating crystal makes me think of the stories of the Garden of Eden and Pandora's Box. While Eve was tempted by the devil to eat the forbidden fruit, Pandora's story has gone through some changes. See, in the original version of the myth, Pandora was a creation of all the Olympian gods and given a jar, yeah, not a box, which contained all the evils of the world, and willingly set them all free to punish Prometheus for giving humanity fire. The interpretation of Pandora's innocent and naive curiosity causing her to open the box rather than a deliberate act is a more modern concept. So what's happening here with Gahyun? Well, we aren't given a lot of other details, but one trailer for the album shows a really pretty sand art painting of the Dreamcatcher members befriending a young girl who presumably either dies or gets corrupted by whatever evil spirit was sealed within the crystal. So maybe the crystal was manipulating Gahyun through her grief to break the seal as a way to save her? This is just my theory, so take it with a grain of salt. The message made in this trilogy is pretty clear. Words hold power and influence in this world, and when overcome with strong emotions, people start to use more hurtful language to harm others, and even themselves, as shown in Yuhyun's arrow scene in Boca. Hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil. While Boca is meant to be empowering those to speak out against those using harmful words to hurt people, this story doesn't have a happy ending. Arai depicts a future where the influence of technology has led to the corruption of hurtful language spreading beyond the control of Dreamcatcher. We've gone from a medieval world full of magic at war with the corruption to a cyberpunk city that has succumbed to it, with another ending title card in Arai that reads,
In the end, the Dreamcatchers couldn't find a utopia. What they dreamed of. Wait, the grammar's wrong. I can't continue with like my voice. What?
Bad grammar aside, this ending also brings me to something I'd like to follow up on in relation to the horror genre. Why are bad endings so popular? For me, I can definitely see the appeal of a bad ending in certain works. It can work as an Aesop for a cautionary tale, warning people of what could happen in a worst-case scenario of making certain poor choices. And even when it's not doing that, a bad or sad ending can be very emotionally cathartic, allowing you to explore and let out those emotions in a safe and controlled environment. If it's too intense to handle, you can always just stop playing the game, stop the movie, close the book, process those emotions at your own pace, and decide whether you want to keep going or just switch to watching cute cat videos. Honestly, I wouldn't blame you for that. I feel like that in general is a big appeal to the horror genre. You're engaging with these works from a safe distance, exploring and processing fear and sometimes sadness at your own comfort level. You can experience the emotional or tense moments of something like, to bring back an example from earlier, the No Mercy route of Undertale, and let out those emotions in a healthy way through the medium of fiction. Even though I personally don't want to play the No Mercy route of that game, nor do I want to play the weird route of its spiritual successor, Deltarune, I totally get its appeal and recognize how well its themes were conveyed in relation to both games' overall message and exploration of choice and consequence. The Dystopia trilogy's message is centered on this idea that our actions, our words, hold consequences. And in the age of the internet, it becomes so much easier to throw around slander and harsh words to people we don't truly know. There's a level of disconnect in the anonymity of the screen to more easily judge someone else. Even the line, "Too many angels dying now" in Boca seems like a pointed message towards those whose harmful words and actions have driven people to take their own lives. Dystopia's message is powerful because it is a world all too close to our reality. The dystopia genre has seen a lot of fluctuation over time with its themes and messages, whether it be the classic downer cautionary tales like 1984, or the YA dystopian craze that was sparked from series like The Hunger Games. Dreamcatcher's Dystopia trilogy strikes an interesting balance where it shows that people can and do hold the power to make things better, but also gives a warning for a future where that hope is being lost. Dreamcatcher couldn't find their utopia because it can't exist. There will always be conflict and strife between people, but we can at least try to be better. Now, before we head into the Apocalypse trilogy, let's reel it back a bit and talk about a few releases that serve more as standalone stories. Right before we officially started the Dystopia trilogy, we got what would be considered Dreamcatcher's magnum opus, Deja Vu. As part of a collaboration with the mobile game King's Raid, the Raid of Dreams EP leans more into the dark, epic fantasy aesthetic and a Shakespearean drama akin to Hamlet or the Scottish play. The ethereal nightmare ghost vibes are now replaced with elegant dresses, lavish sets, and orchestral rock fusion instrumental, and G with a fucking sword and a princess gown. I love this group so much! Deja Vu, for all intents and purposes, is a masterpiece within Dreamcatcher's discography and filmography. Centered on themes of delusion and betrayal, we see the members fighting amongst themselves and being torn apart from within. Regardless of whether you factor this into Dreamcatcher's overarching lore as a standalone, it strikingly captures the themes and aesthetics of the game with a unique flair. And while I could talk about the snubbed first win controversy surrounding Deja Vu, one, I don't really feel like it, since I want to focus more on the story aspect of Deja Vu in Dreamcatcher's lore anthology, and two, it was covered very well already by other fans, such as Mira's dodging disbandment video, so go watch that instead. Bottom line, this was a fan favorite concept and release by many fans, including myself, as this was the comeback era that cinched my decision to go from a casual enjoyer to a full-fledged insomnia. Deja Vu expands on the gothic fantasy vibes we've seen from the Nightmare series, and the B-sides as well are just as iconic, from the intensity of Curse of the Spider, the emotional ballad Polaris, and the feverish EDM track Silent Night, which has now become a concert staple in the group in the form of
One, two, three.
The Endless Silent Night. Yeah, fun fact, I actually wasn't a fan of this song at first, but being there for the live performance permanently changed my brain chemistry. After the release of Scream, we had another collab single for a different mobile game, Girl Cafe Gun, yes, really, with the song Rose Blue. And rather than sticking with a gothic aesthetic, we hard shift into a cyberpunk setting. And it really says something about the potential for Dreamcatcher's range and concepts that we can go from G with a sword to G with a gun, and both are equally badass. I remember how heated the theory debates got over this video, because half of the fandom was convinced that G was the villain here based on the teasers. I, however, was on the side that she was actually trying to save her members, who were trapped in a simulation. I turned out to be right about that, but I was not emotionally prepared for that ending. There's a consistency with the roles certain members play in the story that's very interesting to note throughout almost every storyline. Gahyun is almost always a victim of circumstance, Yuhyun is almost always swayed by a dark power, and Jiu, fitting for her real-life role in the group, is always portrayed as the leader. She's the one to close the gates and fly high to keep her and her friends inside the manor where the curse is unleashed. She is the princess who is betrayed and slain by Yuhyun when she gets corrupted. And now here, she sacrifices her freedom in exchange for her friend's safety. It not only stands as a beautiful testament for Jiu's position in the group and the love that she holds for her members, but it also creates a great contrast when you turn that concept on its head, thus bringing us to Because. Reminiscent of the Nightmare era comebacks and drawing inspiration from the movie Us, we see the members confront and being taken over by their doppelgangers. This entire comeback plays on the traditional concept of a summer release and turns it into a twisted, dark love story. The lyrics focus on the growing obsession the singer feels towards the person they're pining for, with the members becoming like living dolls in an abandoned amusement park. Heck, the comeback stage for this performance opens with Jiu doting over the members like dolls themselves, all of them unmoving and lifeless as Jiu cares for them. It twists the idea of Jiyu's compassionate leader position into a dark reflection of herself. A leader who's obsessed with her members to the point she doesn't even view them as real people with free will, but dolls. This is easily one of my favorite comeback concepts and albums, as outside the main concept for the title track, this is very much still what you would expect from a typical K-pop summer release. They just so happen to give it a unique twist that plays to their strengths and the original horror-based concept, and let them explore more of their range as a group in the B-sides, which is fantastic. Even though none of these releases are directly linked to the Nightmare or Dystopia storylines, it takes elements from them and recontextualizes them in a new way. It allows Dreamcatcher to expand their concept and lore in unique ways outside of longer form series. Also, I think this goes without saying, but Dreamcatcher doing an official anime opening for the King's Raid anime was absolutely amazing. 10 out of 10, no notes. Okay, let's get back to the next trilogy. In my opinion, both the Dystopia and Apocalypse trilogies were game-changing for Dreamcatcher. While the former releases came out in the midst of the pandemic, the group was still getting creative with promoting them, from their online concerts with live band accompaniments to performance videos and silly self-made MVs for their B-sides. On top of that, they were addressing real-life issues surrounding internet culture. Apocalypse is the other side of the same coin, meant to mirror and answer to what Dystopia was about. Now focused on environmentalism, war, and conflict, and an ultimately hopeful message of how we can influence change in the world. Not only did this era mark Dreamcatcher's return to live stages and touring, Maison got them their first ever music show win, which was a huge milestone for the group. Needless to say, by this point, Dreamcatcher was making more waves within the domestic market than ever before. We see Dreamcatcher now as a group of goddesses descending upon a polluted, war-torn Earth like superheroes coming to save the day. They rally the people to fight for the planet. They take out the corrupt and war-hungry hostiles. They summon freaking lightning out of their fingertips, and it's absolutely awesome! Where in Dystopia, Dreamcatcher's role was a warning to the dangers of letting hate spread, they are now an ideal to aspire to in hopes of bettering the world. And one thing I think helps anchor that hopeful message is, rather than outright showing the world healed completely, we don't get that kind of full resolution. Yes, the world is starting to heal in Bon Voyage, but that's it. It's just the beginning. There's still some conflict and some locations are still barren, but we catch glimmers of hope that the world is healing. Ideally, there won't be a fix-all, cure-all solution to something as complex as this. There will still be strife, people will make mistakes, but the important thing showcased in this trilogy is that Dreamcatcher want us, the listener, to dedicate ourselves to trying. Even if we can't solve everything overnight, with empathy and patience, things will start to turn around one day at a time. And with that, we have one set of releases left in Dreamcatcher's current discography, and boy did they have a way of promoting it. Unlike the previous entries, the promotions leading up to this era was rather unique for both Dreamcatcher as a group and K-pop as a whole. Personally, I can only think of 3 groups who have had some sort of ARG elements to promote a comeback. New Jeans with Ban Hee-soo's YouTube channel for Ditto, Artemis and the Club Icarus Instagram and emails, and this duology for Dreamcatcher. I'm going to summarize what all went down, but do check out Bookish Theory's breakdown of OOTD for more info on what sort of clues they left for the starting half of this duology. Through the accounts of someone named Imanekra, we learn of an ongoing phenomena surrounding a crown obsession, which is causing people to act out and even go missing. This ARG was very active within the community, with fans sending and receiving messages to and from Imanekra, hidden links on YouTube, and pop-up locations leaving physical clues for fans to piece everything together. The duology also had one very important theme connecting them, the concept of parallel worlds. Even the titles for the albums, Versus and Virtuous, show that these two EPs are deeply connected. In the first half, Versus, Dreamcatcher are the villains, or perhaps these are even evil doppelgangers, working for the mysterious crown and taking people as sacrifices to it. However, in the second half, they are now the heroes, possibly the real Dreamcatcher members we know and love, stopping the crown's influence from spreading. It's actually an effective means of showing Dreamcatcher's duality, as we've essentially seen them play these roles up until this point from the very start. From a group of friends trapped in a cursed nightmare realm, to heroes trying to save a broken world, to doll-like doppelgangers. Dreamcatcher's constantly shown us the light and the dark, the good and the evil parts of them, and this is no different. If anything, it's more overt with these themes. And not only does the anthology format make these overarching themes incredibly poignant, but the ARG made analyzing this era super engaging. Just like before, the group pushed their creativity to try something bold and new, and for this pair of releases, they went out on a high note.
Justice makes me alive.
Which brings us to today. On March 10th, 2025, it was announced that Handong, Dami, and Gahyun would not be renewing their contracts with Dreamcatcher Company, parting ways to pursue their own goals, whether that be in music or acting. Xion shortly after announced that she was working on a band project, and the remaining trio of members debuted as the group's first official subunit, UIU. And yes, Dreamcatcher has not disbanded. UIU still call themselves a part of Dreamcatcher, and the members regularly keep in touch and have shown up to support their third debut at this point. Ever since Minx era, these seven have found a passion and love for making music with each other, and that's not going to change. And heck, we got to see so many milestones from the group, their first music show win, multiple successful live shows and tours, going to one of the biggest rock festivals in Spain, among so much more. And it wasn't easy for them to get to this point. Everything could have ended with Minx before Dreamcatcher even started, but the members wanted to persevere and make their dreams come true, and that's what happened. And that's the key word I want to bring up here: perseverance. When you look at Dreamcatcher's music and their journey as a group, the constant I keep coming back to is how they embody perseverance. Whether that means pushing through a literal nightmare, wanting to be a light of hope for a broken world, or to just make music as a group together. Dreamcatcher chose to persevere through hardship, all to reach that goal. That is something I personally have always loved about idol music. Yes, it's true that the idol world can be messy and cruel, and nothing is ever picture perfect as it's often made out to be. But every now and then, you get an artist like this, who feels so genuine and down to earth, even with such fantastical concepts as dreams and parallel worlds and good and evil. So when I see idols like this, like Dreamcatcher, who continue to push forward no matter what hardships come their way, to make people smile, to make the world around them a better place, even if just for a moment. That's a beautiful dream I want to see realized.
성녀들이 있기에 드림캐쳐가 있습니다.
I have to go on. Reason.